On a warm spring day in 1986, 5 college friends set out to explore the dense forests of the Appalachian Trail. Alex, Jenny, Mark, Lisa, and Rob had been planning this trip for months, eager to disconnect from their hectic lives and reconnect with nature. Their journey began with high spirits. They marveled at the lush greenery, vibrant wildflowers, and crisp, fresh air. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, they took a break by a bubbling stream, laughing and chatting as they dipped their feet in the cool water. By late afternoon, they decided to push further into the forest, hoping to reach a scenic overlook before setting up camp for the night. They followed a narrow, winding trail that led them deeper into the woods. The trees grew taller and the path more secluded, but their spirits remained high. As dusk approached, they noticed an old, weathered sign partially hidden by the underbrush. It read, "Dunwich Trail, closed for restoration." They hesitated, but Rob, the adventurous one of the group, insisted they take it. "It's probably the fastest way to the overlook," he reasoned. Reluctantly, the others agreed, and they veered off the main path. The Dunwich Trail was overgrown and poorly maintained. The trees seemed to close in around them, and the air grew noticeably cooler. An uneasy feeling settled over the group, but they pressed on. The trail led them to a clearing where they found an abandoned cabin. It was small and decrepit, with broken windows and a sagging roof. "Let's check it out," Rob suggested, already making his way toward the door. The others followed, curiosity getting the better of them. Inside, the cabin was musty and dark. Dust motes floated in the air, and the floor creaked ominously under their weight. They found old, tattered furniture and remnants of what appeared to be someone's personal belongings. "Looks like someone lived here a long time ago," Lisa observed, picking up a faded photograph from a dusty table. It showed a family of 4 standing in front of the very cabin they were in. As they explored further, Jenny discovered a journal hidden under a loose floorboard. The pages were yellowed and brittle, but the writing was still legible when she began to read aloud. March 12th, 1923. "We've decided to move deeper into the woods. The townsfolk don't understand, but we need to get away. There's something out here, something ancient and powerful. We believe it can help us." The entries grew more cryptic and disturbing as she read on. The journal described strange rituals, sightings of shadowy figures, and ominous whispers that seemed to come from the forest itself. "Maybe we should leave," Mark suggested, his voice trembling slightly. But Rob was fascinated. "Come on, it's just a story," he scoffed. "Let's stay here for the night. It'll be an adventure." Despite their better judgment, the group agreed. They set up their sleeping bags in the cabin's main room and tried to make themselves comfortable. As night fell, an unsettling silence descended upon the forest. The only sounds were the occasional rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. Sometime in the middle of the night, Alex woke with a start. He had heard something, a faint whispering that seemed to come from just outside the cabin. He sat up, straining to listen. The whispering grew louder, more insistent. He shook Jenny awake. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. Jenny listened, her eyes widening with fear. "We need to wake the others," she said urgently. As they roused their friends, the whispering grew louder still.
"What's that make you?"
Almost as if it were surrounding the cabin, they huddled together, fear gripping their hearts. The whispers were unintelligible, but filled with a sense of malevolence. "Let's get out of here," Mark said, his voice barely audible over the growing cacophony. They grabbed their belongings and stumbled out of the cabin into the dark forest. The whispering followed them, growing louder and more frenzied. Panic set in as they ran blindly through the woods, the whispering now accompanied by eerie, flickering lights that seemed to dart among the trees. The forest seemed alive, closing in around them, guiding them toward an unknown destination. They burst into another clearing, this one dominated by an ancient, gnarled tree. At its base was a circle of stones, arranged in a pattern that matched the one described in the journal. The whispering reached a fever pitch, and the lights converged on the circle. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The tree's roots seemed to come alive, writhing and twisting toward them. In a moment of sheer terror, they realized the ritual described in the journal was happening before their eyes. Rob, in a desperate bid to stop whatever was happening, grabbed a large branch and swung it at the circle of stones. As the branch connected, a blinding light erupted from the circle, and the whispering ceased abruptly. For a moment there was silence. Then, as the light faded, the forest returned to its normal state. The tree's roots lay still, and the whispering was gone. The group stood there, shaken and exhausted, but relieved to be alive. They made their way back to the main trail as the first light of dawn began to filter through the trees. None of them spoke as they walked, the weight of the night's events pressing heavily on their minds. When they finally emerged from the forest, they realized with horror that Mark was missing. The others looked around frantically, calling his name, but there was no response. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Panicked, they retraced their steps, searching for any sign of him. Hours passed, but there was no trace of Mark. Exhausted and terrified, they decided to head back to town to get help. As they reached the edge of the forest, Lisa suddenly screamed. Alex and Jenny turned to see Rob being pulled back into the forest by an unseen force. His screams echoed through the trees, and then there was silence. Horrified, Alex and Jenny ran as fast as they could, not stopping until they reached the safety of the town. They reported what had happened, but when a search party returned to the forest, there was no sign of their friends or the cabin. Alex and Jenny were left with the haunting memory of the whispers and the chilling realization that something ancient and malevolent still lurked in the depths of the Appalachian Trail. They had been lucky to escape with their lives, but the forest had claimed their friends. Years later, whenever they gathered, the topic of the hike would inevitably come up. They would exchange uneasy glances, the unspoken understanding that some mysteries are better left unexplored. And they knew, deep down, that they had been lucky to escape with their lives.